But as I am already presenting some of our other programs for my job, I always, every year, this is my fourth year, at least my fourth year, presenting at this conference on a number of subjects. So yes, I always feel that this is a very important piece, so that I can see, so that we can see, hear, feel, experience other folks in other places and see what it's like for you, for me to be who I am, for you to be who you are, where you are, and how you are able to be within the confines, especially now that we are in this pandemic age. We're going to talk about how we have all been affected by that. If you care to share, this is an open forum. Please feel free to share at your will. Please feel free to use the chat box, and we will be visiting that chat box and making sure that every acknowledgement is read. So yeah, this has been a very, very difficult past year for me. I have, in fact, known a number of people who are no longer here. And actually, in my family, I've lost about 7 family members due to the pandemic. Most of them are on the East Coast. My parents are from the East Coast. However, I was born in San Francisco. So I grew up not having a grandmother, an aunt, an uncle, any of that sort of stuff, pretty much isolated. But they were my relatives nonetheless when I hear about them. You know, it's not that I really knew them. And so I don't feel a whole lot of grief, but I feel more grief for the people that I have known firsthand, you know, that are no longer here. And certainly this pandemic has a lot to do with it. So I'm glad to see as many of you in the room as you are here. Even if you turn on your camera for a moment, unless you don't want to be recorded, let's do that so we can at least wave at one another and say hello to one another. That would be awesome. I'd love to see the faces, the visages, and feel the energy of my folks. That's right, you're my folks, you're my peeps. I'm adopting you all into my family, absolutely. Yes, so very good. All right. Well, I did not want to bog this down with a whole lot of PowerPoint presentations. So I do have 4 slides that I will begin with, and then we'll be open. And you can take the mic as you feel. Please feel free to share. You might want to have a tissue around. I do, because I'm a big crybaby. I know that. So just in case, you know, take care of yourselves. All right, do that among above and beyond everything else. I'm going to begin to share my screen now. Here, go there. And yeah, let's see from the beginning. Come on, there we go. Oh, really? Hmm. Okay, here we go. Let's see, from the beginning. All right, that's better. Okay. The LGBTQI2S gender nonconforming community mental health care crisis. And I know there's one where I live. I don't know what it's like in other parts of the country or the world, but there's a great need of continued and improved mental health care for our LGBTQI2S family members. This is a self-care and hopefully a self-loving focused community forum. Once again, I am Kozi Arrington and I work at Peers. Yeah, come on, clicker, here we go. So due to stigma and discrimination, LGBT communities have disproportionately been affected by mental health challenges, but the mental health system struggles to address our needs. Is that true where you are? Older LGBT plus adults, such as myself, we face an escalating crisis of care as traditional modalities are ill-equipped to support us. Our seniors, our beloved seniors, yes. And then let's talk about our transgender suicide rates are as much as 9 times higher than the general population. And I would guess that with the pandemic, these figures, these numbers are even higher. Okay. Yes, I would really want to believe that. Not that it's a good thing, but it's just probably a little quite true, um, considering times we're living in. And then our youth. My gosh, I have known since the pandemic 3 young folks between the ages of 16 and 20, 24, who have chosen to end their lives. You know, I don't imagine it can be very easy to be an LGBTQ youth in a family where you are not understood or accepted or any of those things, but then to be thrust into having to stay in place, shelter in place with people who don't get you, who may be victimizing you or treating you less than human, is daunting when I think about our youth. That's why so many of them, even before this, were homeless. They were disowned. They were put out, you know, all those types of things. And what about the ones that are in foster care and all these other situations? So homelessness and trauma is alarming in any numbers, and especially among our LGBTQ youth. Yes. Then we come to our undocumented LGBT plus families and community members who face discrimination, separation, and deportation, and think of how the pandemic is affecting that particular demographic of folks, right? Our undocumented LGBTQ families. Yes. All right. And as much as we think that we're going forward, you know how we take one step forward and then somehow end up taking at least one, sometimes 2 or several steps back. The civil rights for LGBT plus people in the United States appears to be moving backwards and not forward. So we must continue to stay and fight for equality, stand up and demand that we be counted, that we are recognized for the unique, special individuals that we are. Yes? All right. So that's a little bit just to open it up. But what are we here to talk about today? Here are some prompts, and I want it to be totally open to you and what you want to share and how you want to share it. If you can share what it has been like to be who you are. Where are you geographically? I'd like to know that. And where have you been during the pandemic? Because there's been a lot of moving pieces, a lot of shuffling going on. A lot of people have lost homes and housing and jobs and been displaced and all manner of stuff. I'll use that word instead of another S word. Yes, you get me, right? So, and how were you? Everyone has been affected, you know, how were you affected or are you still being affected? Have you been affected? Were you in fact infected? Do you know how that happened? Did you ever feel that you were being inspected during all of this? Have you felt dejected and or neglected? How about rejected? I know all of these words kind of rhyme. Well, that's the poet in me, right? But even when I wrote this, I said, oh, this is a lot. They probably won't accept this, but here we are. And I'm so glad that we are. So we can speak to any and all of these things. It's up to you. So here we are, welcome and able to explore big feelings such as anger, frustration, fear, stress, sadness, etc. Here is a place to do that. And I'm hoping that this workshop, by the end of this workshop, we will feel better. You will feel better about being able to be in a place where no one's ridiculing you. No one's looking down on you. No one is judging you. But we are all here in this experience together just to connect on a spiritual level, if you will, on a people level, which we are, and so on and so forth. So that concludes really the PowerPoint. I'm going to stop sharing now so that we can begin to have this conversation. Is there anyone out there? I do believe we have a raise your hand feature on this one.
We've got some
Yes,
reactions.
we do. Right, in the reactions down there, yes. So you can either use that or please, like I said, please use the chat. And who would like to be our first speaker? Someone who wants to share anything about any of this.
Actually, let me interject real quick before we dive in.
Sure.
If anyone feels triggered, feels like they need support, do not hesitate to let me know. You can always contact one of us. We are the hosts, or you can go to peerapocalypse.com, and we have peer support specialists on standby. Okay, that's all I needed to say.
Thank you for that, Jessica. It's important to know. We will have support. All right. Anyone? Anything in the chat yet?
Dorothy, let me read for Dorothy. I'm having a barrier to find employment as a peer wellness specialist. I am on Social Security for a back condition and mental condition. I can only work up to making $1,300 a month before taxes are taken out. I am a queer pansexual that doesn't live in a box. I want a job. Once I say I can only work for 16 hours a week at $15 an hour, say I am on SSDI in an interview, I do not get the job, or people say that I'm overqualified. I have 20 plus years being a social servant. I got certified in December, applied to over 60 jobs, and feel jaded not having a job. To do my calling with my certification. Thank you.
Wow, that's a lot. And where are you located? Where was she from? What did she say? Oh, another thing, pronouns. I do not want to misgender or disrespect anyone in any way. So my pronouns are he, him, his. And if you care to put that next to your names so that you are not called upon in the wrong pronoun, that might also help. Or you can put that in the chat along with your text. Did she reply as to where she is from, Jessica?
I don't see that she has responded, or that Dorothy has responded. Oh, Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
Got certified at here at Mental Health Association.
Okay. Cool. All right. Thank you, Dorothy. Yes. Would anyone care to respond perhaps to what we have just heard from Dorothy? Anyone having similar problems or?
Yeah, I'll respond. I put it in the chat. My name's David, and I'm from Bend, Oregon. Peer support there with the Deschutes County Health Services. Been doing that for maybe 2 years now, going on 3. And another place that I'm finding I'm able to get into the community with peer support services is through nonprofits and volunteering my time once a week or something. But I think it maybe in your area might be a possibility also. Thanks for listening.
Oh, sure. So David, what's it like to be you? And what has been your experience during the pandemic about how have you been infected, affected, or any of those words that I used that ended in "ected"?
Yeah, okay, thanks for asking. Certainly, I feel isolated, but I don't feel alone. Like I've been able to keep working throughout the pandemic in my current position, and that helps. I'm also really involved with a 12-step community in my area, and I have a lot of support systems too. I'm still in therapy, and I'm able to reach out and connect with people. I got to a place where I was really tired of Zoom. And so I went back to in-person stuff. And now I'm kind of transitioning back into Zoom as kind of numbers went down in my area with COVID cases, and I felt safe to meet in person. And I did what I needed to do for me. That's not always the case though. Like I do still feel I guess kind of alone in some respects, where in my family dynamic, just really not accepting. I don't feel like, or maybe it's me, just not accepting who I am really, and being forthcoming with that. I do have a history of abuse in my family, and that person's still very much alive and part of the dynamic. And so I've got some pretty strong boundaries that I need to keep keep myself safe too, and keep my serenity and peace. And I don't have a problem doing that, but sometimes it does feel like I'm keeping a secret, and you know, that isn't always a healthy and comfortable space for me. So that's what I got to answer the question. Thanks for asking.
Absolutely. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you so much. Who'd like to share next?
I can.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Okay, I was just about to yield. I'm so bad with interrupting people over Zoom. I'm so sorry. My name's Troy. I use he and they pronouns. I identify as someone who's transmasculine and non-binary. I also acknowledge that though my gender is variant, I'll walk through the world very much as a white man and how that matters. I'm queer. I have a dog. I don't know. I was affected by the pandemic in a variety of ways. Watching a lot of my friends drown has been really difficult. I had my housing threatened again, but I changed industries. I went from working in a cell phone call center that I really hated but was fine money. Now I'm in peer support, and I've decided this is what I want to do for my career. I've only been here for a short time, but I'm really enjoying everything so far. I tend to do crisis mental health intervention, which has been both really difficult and so rewarding. So that's kind of where I'm at. That's kind of what's good for me.
Okay, and where are you geographically?
Oh yes, and I'm in Portland, Oregon as well.
Okay, great. Thank you, Troy.
Hey everybody, my name's Holly. I just have, I guess, a question to ask. So first of all, I'm in Tucson, Arizona.
Tucson.
I work for the Arizona Department of Rehabilitation and Reentry of the Corrections. So I'm actually the Southern Region RSS coordinator. So I'm the one that goes through and gets the inmates certified through the state of Arizona to become RSSs, to help when they get out to get jobs. They run classes, groups for me within the prison right now, wellness recovery. But I think my question is one of my RSSs in here is a really big advocate for the community. So I'm not even sure what I'm asking, but I guess I'm just here to learn so I know how to better advocate for the LGBTQ community within the prison, right? It's not really recognized within the prison, even though they allow them to be themselves. It's still difficult to be 100% yourself. Unfortunately, they won't recognize them by he, she, her, they, them, because they're considered a male and they're in the male prison.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to change that verbiage within here. So I think I'm here just to listen and learn and get advice and get any knowledge that I can, because I am very open and to anything that I can learn.
Hey, Holly. Well, thank you for being in the room, and thank you for your willingness to be open-minded so that you can learn and better serve the people that you are in a position to help. And for those of us who may not know what RSSs are, can you let us know what that acronym stands for, please?
That's Recovery Support Specialist.
Okay.
So it's the same thing as a peer support specialist, but here in the state of Arizona, they changed it to recovery support specialist. So they get certified through the state, get a state license or certification number, and they can work at any health field, any behavioral health field, any medical health field. They run wellness groups here for me. Being that they're incarcerated, we don't do billing of insurances, but when they get out, it will give that agency that credentialing to be able for them to work to bill an insurance for sitting down with somebody teaching them how to brush their teeth or something, right?
Mhm.
So that's what an RSS is, a recovery support specialist.
Thank you. And so something you said is just really weighing heavily on me. I know about the prison system. So you are saying that they do not recognize trans people in that prison for being trans.
So they allow them to be who they are, but when it comes to the pronouns, if I know, I'll call her, but the other COs be like, he did it. Okay, where is a he? It's a verbiage thing here.
Okay, and what about folks who may have had reassignment surgeries and that sort of thing? How are they then designated and where are they placed?
So if they go from either or, whether it's male to female or female to male, if that's completely done, then they will transfer them to, so say here, I work on the males unit. If a male goes from a male to a female, then they get moved to the female unit.
I see.
Vice versa.
Okay, and I guess
they do allow them to be who they are with, providing certain products for them, like makeup and other things, but the verbiage is what's kind of hard.
Sounds difficult. Would anyone care to respond to Holly and anything she may have said? Do any of you work in similar situations or?
I'm gonna run to the door. One of my inmates is knocking. I'll be right back.
Okay, sure. Responses? Okay. Well, then who would like to share whatever it is that is on your mind? Rachel, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I actually have a response to that. I used to work at an Oregon prison here, and what I know is, well, first of all, I was an inmate at that same prison, and then 2011, 6 years later, 7 years later, went back and worked in that prison. And so when I heard the COs, refer to inmates the way that they referred to them and things like that, it was traumatic for me. And I wanted to make a change. And what I know is it was a bigger system than just me. And so it was me fighting against this huge system, Department of Corrections. But what I did and continue to do is just stand up for what I believed in. And oftentimes it wasn't appreciated, but I really didn't care because inmates are people. They're not just a number, and I let my voice be heard day in and day out, every day that I worked there. And once I left, I don't know if that change was made, but what I know is I at least planted some seeds in the corrections staff to have them look at inmates as people rather than just a number and a last name and balking orders at them and things like that. And I think it just takes one person starting to use their voice, and eventually more and more will come. So I don't know, Holly probably can't hear me, but I don't know. It was pretty, there was some times where people appreciated it and they took me aside and said something. There was times where they didn't, and they took me aside and said that too. And I really just didn't care because my passion is for the people that were there, not working, but actually being housed there. And I just continue to stand with what I believe in.
Awesome, Rachel. So I'm saying thank you on behalf of all of those people who you honored and tried to honor, and who, by leading by example, hopefully did plant some seeds that have taken root and are growing among the other COs. Yeah, it's hard to fight the system. It's like pushing a boulder uphill, only to have it roll back down on you. Who was that, Sisyphus? I believe, one of those. But yeah, so thank you for your share and for what you have expressed that you tried to do in treating people like people and not just the number that they were assigned from the moment they got booked. You know, and I have been there too, so I've experienced that also firsthand. Been there, done that. Yeah. Thank you. And you are Rachel. In what part are you also in Oregon?
It's Rochelle, actually. And
Rochelle. Oh, what did I say?
it happens all the time. I'm in Portland, Oregon.
Portland.
Mhm.
Thank you. All right. Let's open up. Tell me what's going on where you are.
Kozi, I see we have two hands up. We have
Okay.
Jade and Gianni.
All right.
So I just wanted to say, firstly, Kozi, thank you so much for your phenomenal presence. I'm really honored just to be here with all these different people from across the country. And Rochelle, what you said was really important. Yeah, I mean, so my experience with working with people who have been in prison is generally it's just extended to like letter writing to prison buddies, as we refer to, and that sort of thing. But I did write a couple of transgender people who were imprisoned, and at the time, you know, there was so much going on for them, so much repression coming from different angles, that it became the most important to just honor their individual humanness, to honor their individual identity in those brief moments where we were writing letters back to each other. So my experience is different. I'm also new to at least the concept of peer support. I've been doing peer support way longer than I realized, but yeah, no, I think that what you're saying is absolutely right, Rochelle, that all we can do is take bite-sized pieces out of the things that repress and oppress us. And I'm just really thankful. I can only imagine everyone who's here is of a similar school of thought. So like us, we can change the world, y'all. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Yes. And I believe Gianni, is that it? Right?
Yes, Gianni.
Okay. Where are you at?
I was going back to the what they were talking about earlier, and I really believe it's two things. It's a systemic issue, and then also it's training. And even if the officers get training, it's one of those kind of things is which like, will they do it as far as pronouns? And then if they don't, and then they get a grievance written on them, then they face repercussions for that as well. So it's like going against the grind. So that's all I wanted to say.
And where are you located, Gianni?
I'm in Portland, Oregon.
Oh, okay.
Actually, I'm in Vancouver, Washington, but I work at NHO in Portland, Oregon. So
thank you for being with us today.
mm-hmm.
Thank you. Who would like to open up next? Let me ask you this. Since the pandemic, have your lives gotten better or worse? How has this pandemic affected you and your essence? You know, what have you perhaps lost, or have you had to move? All of these things. Let's bring some of that stuff up and get it out and open. And I think we may be surprised at the similarities, even though we are geographically distanced.
I'm looking through the comments here, so I wanted to bring a couple.
Please do.
Let's see. Karen. Karen is with NAMI, Washington County. She said, the past couple of years have been huge for me regarding sexual ID. I facilitated an LGBT plus support group. We have been the major support for each other throughout the isolation. Kim shared with us, to those struggling with finding work as a peer support specialist, I know many who have gone through the process of becoming trained and certified and cannot find work, especially when disability limits earnings. If you have access to an individual placement and a supported employment program, they may be able to assist you in obtaining employment that fits your circumstances. It is a program for people with mental health conditions and is accessible for people on Oregon Health Plan. Let me see what else we have in here. Shauna is from Yakima, Washington. My employment was not impacted negatively, nor my home or family affected. Conformity to sudden change, imprisoned by the disease around us, and expected to maintain a sense of positivity to support my team members. Fear of exposure in the community, burdened by sadness of so many suffering. Let's see, want me to go on, or does somebody want to share? Okay,
Yes. Go
okay.
ahead.
Emily, she says, hi, I'm Emily. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a lesbian and I live in Salem, Oregon. I moved to a new city during COVID for work and have struggled to find friends here, especially in the LGBTQ community. I have a lot of anxiety about being accepted as I am. I came out when I was 15 to my parents, not by choice, but because they found photos of my girlfriend and me. At the time, I thought they wouldn't let me see her because of her age, but this year I found out that it is because they struggled to accept me and wanted to be in denial. It's been extremely hard to deal with those feelings. I am also in recovery from drugs and alcohol, and my sexuality was the first moment of feeling like the black sheep, and I just keep feeling more and more separate from my family, friends, and everyone. It's very lonely.
I want to say something to that. I've had a similar, let me scroll up to where that was. That was Emily. Emily, I've had a really similar experience. I'm still not out to the majority of my family. I identify as non-binary, queer, I guess is the, I don't know. I'm also trying to like decolonize my understanding of like who I am and how I exist in the world. So that's a different conversation, but I really relate to the feelings of isolation, the feelings of loneliness, especially as it pertains to like, you know, family members. It's like, we're related, we share blood, and yet there's so much I just can't talk with you about without feeling even worse. And one of the things that I learned, and I'm still continuing to learn, is that as a queer person, we make our own family. And that sounds harsh, that sounds hard and painful, but I mean, like the people who are really there for us, who are really on Team Emily, they show out in a way that sometimes blood relatives never could. You know, sometimes our blood relatives just aren't all that we need them to be. And so we find family in other ways. But, you know, what's troubling is that, you know, especially in this age of like, I mean, we're completely isolated right now in so many different ways. I'm wondering if you've considered going online. Do you have any sort of like support groups online? Because that's something that can help, has helped me a little bit. Still, it's, you know, this is still just a difficult time for so many different reasons.
Yes.
Will you message me those, like a link to those groups?
Sure. Do you use like, yeah, I'll message you. Let me, yeah, how do I can message you privately, I bet. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm going to. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Yes, yes. And I encourage any of you out there listening, if you know of resources that you might be able to put links and that sort of thing in the chat so that we can all benefit from it, that would be awesome. Thank you for that. And thank you, Emily. Yes, yes, indeed. Yeah, it has been really difficult. I'll just share a little bit of more of my experience. I lost my life partner of 20 years 6 months before COVID hit. So imagine being with someone all that time and then suddenly they're no longer there. And then this thing happens, which forces me and everyone else into even further isolation. It has been really difficult. I have lost at times my will to want to go on, my ability and want to just wake up the next day and get out of bed and just to keep going. If it weren't for a few things that keep me grounded, I am, and I do have a music ministry. And I have been able to continue that only because I'm the founder and director, but I've not been able to be with my musicians and my vocalists for over a year. And I take that back because we made our first appearance as a group about 2 weeks ago in a physical church, but there were only 10 people in the whole building. And I made it very clear that if there was a lot of people there, that I would just go home. I just couldn't. But I'm saying that this thing about sheltering in place, I had to kind of phrase that into sheltering in grace, if you will, because that was the one way for me to at least make more sense of it. And if I didn't have this music and my spirituality to keep me grounded, I would not be here because I would have, as I oftentimes still do, I would have just said enough is enough and taken my final bow and drawn the curtain, if you understand what I'm saying. So it has been difficult. But one more thing, last week, I did something unusual. I have not as much as walked around the very block that I live on in the 13 years I've lived here. Okay, but something said the other day, get up, go out, walk around the block at least. It's like 7:15 in the morning. I punch in at work at 7. Every morning I send a staff message, and the day before that, my message said something like, I really used to enjoy nights, but now I really look forward to the morning because with the coming of that new dawn, there is a possibility that things can change and get better, infinite possibilities, something very positive like that, along with a picture of a woman with the sunrise behind her, and she's taking a walk, and it says, get out and take a walk. So I decided to not only talk about it, but be about it and leave my house. And I got 20 steps away from the front door of the building that I live in. And here walking towards me in the street is a woman. And I look up and she's like, hi, hi. I was totally surprised. I turned around to make sure she wasn't, talking to someone behind me. You ever done that? Think somebody's talking to you and you it's somebody else. So once I discovered she was really talking to me, I stopped and I said, hi, good morning. How are you? And we stood her in the street and me on the sidewalk for 15 minutes and we just talked about whatever, I don't even know, but we connected. We were making a human connection, right? And after a while, I said, well, you're going that way. I was only walking around the block, which in fact is what she was doing because she lived around the block. So I said, well, let's go this way. So I decided to walk with her. She showed me where she lived and we talked and we talked. That conversation lasted an hour. I finally had to say, you know what, this has been wonderful, but I have an 8:30 meeting and I need to get back and get set up. Like I said, it was 7:15, so I made it back just in time to set up for an 8:30 meeting to show you how long this conversation lasted. But here is even what made it even more dear and important. Whew, this lady, and people were going to say, well, why is that important? But you'll know. This was a white woman, okay, a senior kind of citizen. I found out that I was older than her, but why is that? Why was that important to me? Given the current climate of the racial tension in the country and in my city in particular. Here was someone who chose to see above and beyond all of that and recognize me as a person first, you know? And so that meant so much to me. I didn't think it would, but let me tell you, remember I told you I lost my partner, okay? This woman was the first person to give me a hug in 2 years. 2 years before I left to run back. So, here's the best thing. I says, oh, we've been talking all this time. What's your name? She says, my name is Sherry, but most people call me Butch. I'm like, yes. So I just wanted to share that and how I have been, like many of you, affected by the isolation and perhaps the loneliness. And I'm sure that it's different for folks who have other people in the house, even if they're in the next room or even if they're downstairs or, you know, that they're connected. But here I was so totally isolated and alone because I don't have a circle of friends. You know, my partner and I, we were very just much together. I never met a single relative of his in the whole 20 years. No one ever came to our home, crossed the threshold to see him that would say, I am his friend. So this is how we were, okay? And then for that to be done, it's just been really, really difficult for me. And if I, like I said, if it weren't for a number of other things, I would not be having this conversation with you today. So thank you for allowing me to share and be open and transparent and vulnerable and emotional. How about, what's it been like for others? Here's the mic, somebody take it. Yeah.
Go ahead, Megan. I see Megan's hand has been up.
Hi, I was listening to what you guys were saying on the support, and so for me, sometimes when we look for support or we look for things, we don't always find what we need. And I found, for me, especially in today's day and age with technology, Facebook, Zoom, and everything, I created what I needed. And I found that a lot of people needed that same space. When I first got really motivated about recovery, I created a Facebook group, and it was just me at first, but I invited people to be a part of it, and it turned into an open recovery meeting. And I had a friend who was going through transition, and she wanted to create so she's Christian, and there was a lot of, it was really hard as a trans woman to be part of a Christian community. So I encouraged her, like we did it together, I encouraged her to create her own support group, and she created a meeting and a Zoom thing. She wrote a book, you know, and so if you can't find what you need, create it, you know, and you'll be super surprised, you know. For Kozi, I was really appreciative of what you said, and I really, I have a lot of friends who have lost their life partners. You know, I'm 43, so I'm part of an older community, and maybe a support group around that, you know. And you'd be surprised, sharing it on Facebook and creating a group page and inviting people to see it, how many people actually truly need that support. So I don't know, just be part of the change we wish to see in the world.
Thank you for that, Megan. I appreciate that. Yeah. And it's something you said is really interesting. You find a need and you fill it, or you if you need something, create it. I have, because of the depth and the well of feelings that I've been having, I've created a new program. It's really taking off. I've presented it at a couple of the colleges here in Alameda County, and because people are suffering. And I have hopefully cleverly named it good morning, good MOURNING. Good morning, so that we can pay homage to and talk about the very special people in our lives that we have lost doing this, and making it a safe space to, first of all, cry and acknowledge and be with other people who are suffering or who are in the midst of losing or have lost so much. You can be mourning the loss of your home, your housing, your job, your children, your grandparents. There's so much people have lost. The loss of our freedom, of our liberties, of our things that we always have taken for granted, which are somehow now being denied us, you know? Yes. So maybe you all, wherever you are, can adopt this, pick it up, and maybe do a workshop, call it Good Morning. Maybe we can start a movement, a good morning movement, because certainly people will always be transitioning from this plane or realm to the next. So there will always be a need for people to come together. You hear about people having, or organizations having, a grieving kind of part of their programming, but just the way I have, when you say it like that, good morning, it kind of flips the switch, you know. And even though we're still sad and we're in it, we can look at it and reframe it and glorify that and raise those people up and acknowledge however it is that they affected us, and how we continue to be affected, and how we will keep their memories alive in our hearts, souls, and minds. Because truly, they still are here. They're either here or here. They're certainly somewhere. You know, we are all energy, I believe, and one energy just changes and morphs into yet another form of energy. Just as when it rains, it was first in the clouds, and then it rains, and then it comes down, and then it evaporates, and it becomes steam, and then it, you know, it's a cycle, endless cycle. So yeah, who would like to say anything about anything? This is an open forum. You got it. Your turn. I'm passing you the mic. There you go.
Grant, I think that goes to you.
Actually, when I saw Colleen raising her hand earlier, I wanted to see if did you want to speak, Colleen? Before I speak, do you want to speak? You're like, okay, thank you. Sorry. Because you kind of got me kind of on that, like, especially like that idea of good morning. Like, that's like, sometimes we think of like morning as like a horrible thing, like something to avoid, something to get aware of. And so that idea that it's good to mourn, like that's a beautiful concept. And thank you. I am a person that part of my history is that I had agoraphobia, and so I was in my house for a very long time, and I was finally able to like get those, you know, get my tools and get out of my house and stuff. And with the pandemic, like for the first few months, I'm like, oh, this is awesome. I don't have to go anywhere. I gotta see anybody. I don't gotta do nothing. That's awesome. Okay, I love this. And then as the pandemic has continued, I'm just like, now I'm becoming fearful. I'm becoming fearful again of what's going to happen when I leave. What's like that panic, like when I go to the grocery store, like I started having panic attacks again. And like, it's been that hard space of like, how do I like feel safe and like in it, you know, in that space. And also with my partner is a lovely drag queen. And my partner also works as a massage therapist, and is Asian. And when the attacks in Atlanta happened, like I had so much rage. Like I went to work and I was talking to my peers, and I just kind of broke down for a minute, and like this is not okay. This is, you know, like, you know, it was that moment of like sitting there across the table from my partner as he's like looking up batons and tasers to take with him to work. Like it was. So thank you for this space, Kozi.
You're absolutely welcome. Really are welcome. And Grant, I cannot help but see your last name. or the words that are on the screen. And
Yes,
can I ask, is it okay if I ask, is that your real
absolutely.
name, or is this, can you say more about that for us, please?
Absolutely. So it depends on what side of the family you talk to. So in my family, if we go back to Nebraska, we have our family reunion. It is a faggot family reunion. Back when I was in sixth grade, I was kind of getting into my own space, and I actually realized it's French. So there's an accent aigu on the O, so it's actually Feijo. And so for a long time, like I had a Letterman jacket. Like in high school, I had a Letterman jacket with it on, with that last name on the back of my jacket, and of course I got teased for it, and so yeah, all that stuff. And for the longest time, my mother and my sister both went with me, and we now all use the Feijo pronunciation. And last year, and it's my dad's name, so like my dad is like, nope. So he was in the military, and we always call him up and like, can I speak to Chief Faggot, please? And and so there's a lot of stuff there. And last year, I was hearing him talk to somebody, and he actually said Feijo. Like that was the biggest like, I felt so seen. I've never like, even we've talked about me coming out to him. Like my coming out was, I need to tell you I'm gay because mom's making me tell you. He's like, I sort of knew. That's the only conversation we've ever had about it. And that piece when he said our last name being Feijo, like that was the biggest acceptance of that I can be different, that I made this change in our family. So
Okay, thank you for allowing me to ask that question.
thank you.
I'm not sure how many others in the room had noticed that and were, wait a minute, wait, what? And when you said that you shared that your lovely partner is an Asian drag queen, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay. So just last Friday, I put on an event here in Alameda County because I founded 8 years ago what is known as the Sexuality and Gender Alliance Committee. It was the 13th committee under what is known as the Pool of Consumer Champions, which nestles under the Alameda County Behavioral Healthcare Services umbrella. Okay, you got it? Da, da, da. So every year, each of these committees is required to put on an event that has to be fun and educational. So just last Friday, we celebrated the 8th year of being a committee. And oh, here's a tool that some of you will just love. Did you know, how many like the game Jeopardy? Any of you Jeopardy fans? Well, did you know that you can go online and you can fill in a blank Jeopardy template around anything you want it to be about, and it's free. Okay, so many of you will probably be able to use this tool in your groups, in your organizations, online. Anyway, I tested it out at my event on last Friday. And one of the categories, I don't remember what it was, but to get back to Grant, what you said, there was a quote, hell hath no fury like a drag queen scorned. And I guess we were supposed to figure out who it was that said that, another famous LGBT person. But yeah, you just brought me back to that. But I'm glad you did, because now you all know that you can make a Jeopardy template game about anything. It's up to you to come up with it. Did you know that? Anybody? We'll see, we're passing it on, right? Good stuff here. All right, who else would like to share? It looks like Colleen is raising her hand. Colleen, please.
Hey guys,
Hey.
I'm over here in Pennsylvania, right, real close to Philly.
Hey.
No, because of the pandemic. Well, not because of the pandemic, but I was taking care of my mom for 6 years, and she had to go into her nursing home, so I wasn't able to visit her, and then she passed away in a nursing home. So that was 2 months ago. I'm a bisexual person who is always alone, especially during COVID, and dealing with mental health. I can't say problems, mental health situation. And I just, I don't have a job yet. I'm a certified peer specialist, but I don't have a job. And like Dorothy, I can't find, I can't find a position that pays what I need to pay because I'm on disability.
Right.
It's just crazy. I just wanted to share that.
Well, thank you, Colleen, for sharing it and for sharing your loss with us. Our hearts go out to you and to each and every one of each other, shall I say. Yeah, it's really kind of difficult when I remember being on, what was it? SSI or something like that, and only being allowed to make so much dollar. And if you make 1 penny over that amount, then your benefits can be cut off and you have to go through all these changes. And then still you're not able to get into a position that pays you enough to sustain your living situation. So it's a catch-22. You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. And we're just left to twisting sometime and turning in the wind. That's how it feels. Yeah, so thank you for sharing that. Grant, did we ever get what part of the country you're in or the state?
I'm in Woodburn, Oregon.
You're in Oregon. Okay, great. All right. Who would like to share?
I see Kim has had her hand up.
Okay, yes, Kim.
Thank you. I was just thinking, because we've been in this, I can't say that I feel any more isolated now than I did like previously, because I'm kind of an introverted person, and I like to leave my house, but mostly I like to do things alone and outside. So I can still do a lot of the things that I like doing. But as far as like my job, for this whole year, I haven't been able to meet with anybody in person. So I've been trying to find like kind of silver linings in all of this, because I feel like at this point, what else can I do but try to focus on the parts that are, just focus on things that are positive or have gratitude. But I've finally kind of said, in maybe not in these words, but I kind of told my employer, like, I'm going to go meet with people. So you can either give me permission or you can say, see you later. And so I started meeting with people again in person, and it just kind of gave me this like renewed experience of like the power of just being with somebody as a peer, and just it so much different than being on the phone, or even like this is nice, and this is what we have to do to stay connected. But it's just kind of giving me like this renewed experience of the power of that, of just being, with somebody as they're going through whatever it is that they're going through.
Kim, thank you for sharing that. It looks like Jen has their hand. Oh, Jen has her hand up. Hey, Jen.
Hi, thank you. Yeah. First, I just wanted to say thank you so much for this today. For me, it couldn't have come at a better time. Today has been a whirlwind. I had a minor breakdown earlier. As a manager, I've got kind of a lot of fires to put out sometimes, and today there was a lot of fires. So this is more needed for me than I could even express. So thank you for that, first of all. I think I posted in the chat there a little bit about myself. I'm in Portland, Oregon as well. And I am highly social person, extrovert. I have a lot of friends. I like you, I'm a singer in a band. We haven't been able to have gigs since 2019 at least. I just got together with them the first time last Thursday, because I'm the only female, and they're all my dad's age. It was actually my dad's band. He was the lead singer, and he passed away 6 years ago, and then I kind of took his place. So I had to wait for them all to get vaccinated before they felt comfortable to all be together. So that made me so happy that that's my heart right there, is singing and music. And what I have found in being a very social person during a time like this is, I think some other people have touched on it, is you kind of find new things that you're able to do, that you enjoy, that can fill your time, that, you know, is allowed and safe to do. So I focus on that. Camping, getting out in nature. I have a 3-year-old, so she keeps me really busy. We had a dog pass away at the very beginning of the pandemic in March of last year. And so we waited about a year and recently got a new puppy. So just kind of trying to just find the new things that you can make work in a time like this. Find what's brings you joy, and hopefully at some point this will all get better, and we can get back to seeing more of our friends and doing things like this in person again, because this kind of stuff is what brings me a lot of joy. So thank you again.
You're very welcome, Jen. Thank you for sharing all of that. Yeah, and there's this thing about maintains social distancing. I'm like, that isn't really working, because I started to change that, maintain physical distancing while remaining social, because we are right now in a social environment, albeit via Zoom, and we're all in these little boxes. So I did not like the idea of social distancing, which would mean a cutoff of communication. You know, no, let's keep the communication lines open while being safe and maintaining physical distancing. You know, there's a difference there. And it took me a while to figure that out, and to figure out why I was so affected by the term social distancing from someone who's already isolated and insulated, and you know, that sort of thing. So thank you for sharing all of that. Who would like to share anything about anything that's on your mind? This is the place. I'd like to have any of you actually been infected? Has anyone in the room actually had or experienced COVID? If you feel safe enough to make that disclosure, that would be interesting to hear from someone who has, if in fact that is the case. Have any of you felt neglected during all of this, or rejected?
I can share if
Hmm.
that's okay.
Charity.
Yes. I was infected with COVID-19, and I was out of work for longer than 2 weeks. You know, I want to say almost 3 weeks. It's been a real hardship for my girlfriend and I. You know, she works in corporate fitness, and a lot of what she does isn't, you know, like gyms were closing down and things like that, and businesses are trying to, you know, save money, so lost revenue or whatever might the case be, and you know, had lost her job, and that had continued to happen, and it's been difficult to, you know, find work that, you know, she's trained for. So with that said, you know, being out of work for a couple weeks plus, you know, I was really worried. I was really scared. I wasn't able to make the rent. You know, we had just moved into a new home. We just purchased a bunch of brand new furniture, you know, without knowing what would happen, you know, with COVID and the impact that it would have. And so, you know, we had all of these bills, and yeah, it just had a huge impact. And during that time when I was sick with COVID, I of course couldn't see my family or visit anyone. And you know, that was challenging because I knew, you know, like my grandma, if she were to get sick, it would kill her. And, you know, that was something that I really worried about. Uh, um, I, I can't remember what else I was thinking, but I did, you know, like I missed birthday parties. I missed, you know, things like that. You know, not being able to get together, see my family, and, you know, I moved to Tacoma, and it's just been, you know, it's been difficult that way.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Thank you, Charity. I imagine we hope that you're doing well. Do you have any of the residual effects that I've been hearing about lately of people who have had the virus and have now have long-lasting effects? Has that been your experience, Charity?
No, I wouldn't say so. I think, you know, I'm probably one of the lucky ones as far as, you know, someone who's had COVID. I had pretty, I mean, I had some fairly severe like body aches and stuff like that, and a lot of other symptoms. And I mostly just slept in bed for several days at a time and didn't do a whole lot, but that seemed to do the trick. Um, you know, another thing to mention is I know there's a lot of differing opinions on vaccines and whether or not people want to get the COVID vaccine and the impact that it's having. You know, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar, but the Johnson and Johnson vaccine for COVID-19 has been discontinued because of some problems that they're having. And, you know, there's a lot of concern over the long-term effects. And I think there's a lot of stress on us during the pandemic because, like for myself, you know, I didn't want to get the vaccine. And after having gotten sick with COVID and, you know, the people that I serve and concern for my family, you know, I felt that it was my responsibility that I had to. And I guess what I'm saying is there can be a lot of pressure during this time, not just, you know, financially, but also, you know, to care for others that are in those vulnerable populations and what exactly our responsibility is with that.
Yes. Thank you, Charity. I saw that Melissa had their hand up. Melissa, you ready?
Yes, actually. So I myself had ended up with COVID as well. It's been almost exactly a month ago. I was finally able to come back to work. And I actually do peer support at an isolation shelter for people who are homeless individuals or people like coming from prison who have either tested positive or need to quarantine due to being exposed. So when it happened to us, my coworker and I were the ones who ended up being, we got quarantined together, which was it was actually a good thing because I don't know what I would have done being completely by myself through all that time. We had just received a call from public health, and the all we were told was you can't go home because I have a 1 and a 2-year-old. She has children. Her youngest is 6 months old with a hole in his heart. And yeah, so it was incredibly scary. We did end up getting hit with some very severe symptoms. And I myself still am feeling those effects. I still have the same sore throat and issues with the brain fog, I think is what they say. And it's been like a month, and all they tell us is that it can last for months after this, and we don't know. We're just going to keep an eye on things. But as scary as it was and as hard as it was to just be taken from our families, and really you hear that there's a lot of help and support throughout this time, but I can say that for us, once we were told that we had it and we had to go to that hotel, that was it. I mean, we felt 100% alone, which was a really hard thing to go through. But for me, I consider it as weird as this sounds, a blessing in disguise, because the amount of empathy now that I have for all of the peers that I work with that are stuck there in this hotel, you know, that don't really know what's going on. And I'm able to use that every day to help the people that I'm working with. So.
Wow. And where are you geographically?
So I live in McMinnville, Oregon. I work in Portland, Oregon with MHAO.
Okay. Wow. Thank you for sharing some of your story with us. So yeah, so you have not only were infected, but you were then dejected, neglected, rejected, all of those things that, all of that stuff. And that's a lot. That's a lot for even someone under an ideal situation. And of course, there's the garbage truck outside in case you're wondering what that noise is. And I'm way up here, but it's carrying up from the street. I'm sorry for the noise. Let's see, someone else kind of speak until this truck passes about anything. You know, I know what's in the chat. Can we go there?
We can definitely go there. There's, let's see, I don't know where I left off from someone. Okay, Kevin shared, maybe Karen had shared a comment. Let's see where Karen's was. Karen shared, my husband died during the early days of HIV/AIDS. Already had to be secretive about coping with the illness, let alone getting any grief support. Then I'll jump to Kevin. Kevin said, I hear you, Karen. My father tested HIV positive, died of AIDS in '92. He endured so much pain and suffering. Also, we watched his friends and many of our family melt away. It also revolutionized our relationship in so many ways. I learned the meaning of unconditional love. What else do we have? Dorothy shared again. Dorothy said my medication cost almost $1,000 off of my Social Security or SSDI. With SSDI, I get it for about $10 a month. So having a full-time job, third of the wage will go to paying for the medication. Then if I get let go, I will be at a loss of how to pay almost $1K a month for medication that is helping me to be able to walk. I appreciate you all for letting me rant in a safe space. My condition is, I'm sorry, Dorothy, I don't know how to pronounce your condition, so feel free to chime in if you'd like.
Ankylosing spondylitis. Ankylosing spondylitis.
Thank you. Dorothy continues, could you all send some good energy, please? I do not want to be homeless again. My wife lost her job, hasn't found another job in months because of the shutdown, and we only have 2 months of bills in the savings account. She is also trans, can't get her medication covered after moving to Portland, and is not having luck with the healthcare system here, being on Medicaid. We both feel rejected.
I know you're going to continue, but let's send her love, healing, energy, all of the good stuff that we all deserve. And as we send it to her or them, let's send it to one another as well. Let's embrace one another, lift one another up in higher consciousness. Yes, and so it is. Would you care to continue, Melissa, with the chat?
Trying to see what else I may have missed.
Okay.
Let's see. Oh, let's see. Oh, earlier in the chat, Marianne shared, I'm in major burnout right now and struggle with talking to people, lest I fall apart and say my struggles in a way that upsets someone. Marissa M. had also shared, isolation has been very difficult, went back on medication after being off. Gianni had posted, "It has not affected me. I work 2 full-time jobs and go to school full-time online. But a lot of people around me aren't doing so well." Would you like me to keep going? Yeah.
Yes, please.
BJ shared our drop-in center closed. It did not reopen, but it greatly reduced hours and staff, so I lost my job. Having great difficulty finding work, still unemployed due to mobility impaired disability, ADD, dyslexic, and my age is 66.
Wow.
Let me go down to see if there's some more comments. Marianne shared, "Melissa's a rock star," to which Melissa responded, "I appreciate you more than you know, Marianne. You are an amazing supervisor." And Karen chimed in, "Just for right now, I love this conference, but my butt hurts."
Is that a polite way of telling me that I'm a pain in the ass? It won't be the first time. It probably won't be the last. But thank you. Whatever you need to do to take care of that butt, you do it. Okay,
It's absolutely not about you, Kozi. No, you are fantastic. I went off camera just because I had to stand for a while.
Thank you. And it's really important as we go through all of these big feelings and emotions and the things that we go through to try to maintain a sense of humor about this. What else can we do? Sometimes we have to laugh just to keep from crying. You've heard that saying? Well, now I know what that really means. I can really embody that. So yeah, thank you all for all of your shares, all of the things that you shared, all of your wisdom, all of your transparency, and all of something smells okay. But thank you for all of that. I realize that we are under 10 minutes left in the group today. So I want to encourage someone who may not have spoken up about something that you might really want to say to do so now. Don't let it stay in here or in here. If you think you might feel better by opening up and letting it out and airing it out, this is sometimes, oh, here's another something I know y'all gonna steal. Put the skunk on the table, okay? That's what I say. Put the skunk on the table and let it air it out. Let's talk about it. Let's do whatever it is so that we can lessen the stench, so to speak, of any given situation. Anybody, who's next? Okay, really? Anything been added to the chat just now? Oh, Janie has their hand up. Janie.
Hi. I don't want the video on because,
okay,
to be honest, I'm still in my pajamas.
No problem.
Okay. I wanted to share. I appreciate everyone just talking about their lives and how rough it's been. I wasn't planning on saying anything because I feel like, I should, I don't know, maybe, I don't know. I don't want to sound ungrateful, I guess. It sounds like everyone had it a lot worse than I have, if that makes sense. I don't want to sound like everything's perfect. You know what I mean? I don't want to sound like an asshole. Excuse my French. My life's not perfect. It's getting better. And that's why I raised my hand, because it's just because it's getting better doesn't mean it's always been that way. I had it pretty bad recently. I felt pushed out of my old job from my supervisor. She said she didn't think I could do my job anymore, and she was new, and it really hurt me because I was there for a couple of years, and it really confused the hell out of me. I started crying, it was bad. And crane at work. So I ended up getting a different job. I didn't think you could even get a job during the pandemic. That's what I told her. And then like my sister was having issues, so I ended up going into caregiving, thinking I was going to move to a small town, which sounds crazy, but it's the pandemic. Everything's like up for grabs. Like everything can happen. Like you never know. So I took that leap and I went into caregiving from peer support, and that didn't work out. I quit that job and I was without a job for about a month. When I quit my job a week after, I broke my ankle, which was crazy. It was like a freak accident. I was like in this boot thing, it's like a cast, like a removable cast. And I was in that for like 5 weeks. I was so sad. I felt like it's the end for me. Like no one's gonna want to hire me. Like, I felt like, you know, like no one's gonna want to hire me. I could barely drive. Like I'd have to take it off to drive. Like, my mom's gonna have to drive me around. Like I don't know. My head was spinning. But it's like finally overpassed all of that, and it's like it's finally kind of calm, and I have a job now, and it pays well, and I'm just like so happy now. But it definitely wasn't like that like a month ago. So, yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to just share like that struggle, my story, and maybe be a light for people who are struggling right now. Like there's a saying is like it doesn't rain forever, and like I just wanted to share that with you guys. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Janie, and we are all so glad you did share.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. And it's because of all of you sharing that this workshop has been the success that it has been. I consider it to have been a success, not knowing going in with no, agenda and all of that about how things may unfold. I'm really happy. I am not displeased in this moment. I'm very happy that I was able to make this connection from all of these miles away, 1,000 miles, however, wherever we are located geographically, at least in this space, we are connected. We are one, at least for a little while. And in closing, oh, wait a minute. Let's go back to the chat really quickly. Jessica, I know someone put something else in there. I saw it briefly towards the bottom. I think Grant said something. In response to Janie, I believe it was.
Real quick, let me rewind it back a little bit. Jennifer would like to know if Kozi, you would be interested in sharing your contact information. I feel like it would be beneficial to our community to learn more about your Good Morning movement. Jennifer is located in Omaha.
Okay.
Emily shared best session I've been to. Rochelle agreed. Grant said he was stealing your quote, you're saying. Karen shared, if it's laughter you want, check out our executive director, Dave Malry's book. Dorothy thanked everyone for allowing her to vent. Marianne said, what a great safe space you've created here. Rochelle said, amazing workshop and connection. Grant shared, Brene Brown says, just because things are worse for others doesn't mean you don't deserve compassion too. Is that what you were talking about?
Yes, it is. I do believe it is. And I'm going to share with you in closing a poem that I wrote, 20, 30 years ago. I'm not exactly sure anymore. It's called The Key. So tomorrow is not promised. And today, why, it's almost done. So as you go on living, folks, why not just try and have some fun, okay? Take a look around you at all of the things you never see and realize that all things exist, if not for you, for me. The birds that fly in the skies above are evidence of the power of love. And to be able to hear their melody so sweet should make one happy just to witness such a treat. Flowers that bloom with picturesque beauty remind one that Mother Nature is on duty. The grass is so green, the skies so blue, the winds that blow for me and you. So see the mountains and see the trees and watch them bending in the breeze. The tides that rush upon our shores, ceasing never, evermore. And when you meet your fellow man or woman, try not to judge this person, for any time that you have doubt, misunderstanding, why, it will only worsen. Just keep in mind that he or she is human, just like you are. Search to find the good in him or her, and then surely you'll go far. For to accept a stranger and not look down on them will help one understand oneself and what goes on within. Yes, so just take a look around you at all of the things you never see. You'll never know what lies beyond the door without the key. Thank you so much. Peace and blessings, everyone. This session is now over. Please fill out the evaluations. I would love to hear some weeks from now what you may have said about my workshop today. Peace and blessings. Put the skunk on the table. Remember that. What else was there? I forget, but you know, you got it, right? Peace and blessings, everyone. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Kozi. This was wonderful.
All right, the session is now over. Peace
Thank
out.
you.